Perfect. Carbon yield recognizes that we need to start thinking about conventional farms as the coal plants of the 21st century, expensive, dirty, and dying. And we are building a platform to ensure that the alternative, that regenerative agriculture, becomes the norm, enabling our farmers to prosper while unlocking an essential climate solution. I am Sam Schiller. We are building a platform for the new regenerative farm economy to help the next generation of farmers transform our working lands. It has simply become too expensive to farm conventionally. In the US over the last decade, more than half of farmers lost money for 10 consecutive years. A lot of this has to do with how expensive it is to farm degraded soil. Industrial farming strips from the soil the roots, the life that help us consistently produce healthy food. And as soil degrades, US farmers are adding more and more expensive fertilizer and pesticides to eke out the same yields. This vicious cycle is terrible for the climate, as more than 30% of the emissions swirling above us originated in our working lands. And we need to get back to our roots and build a better food system that works for everyone. Regenerative agriculture is the solution. We need to literally regenerate our soil. Cover cropping, avoiding tillage, integrating livestock, help bring back roots, fertility, life, carbon to the soil. And these practices wean farms from expensive fertilizer and chemicals, making farming more profitable, more resilient to extreme weather, and allow us to nourish our communities with healthy food. But the challenge really lies in transition. There are upfront costs for equipment and seeds, a learning curve for new crop rotations, and transitional resources from carbon markets are pretty inaccessible to most farmers. There's just a lot of uncertainty the moment a grower steps outside of a system they know with an established supply chain and a column of support behind them. But carbon yield establishes the alternative pillar of support behind our growers so they can confidently transition to regenerative agriculture at scale. We operate the hub where farmers make regenerative decisions, sell their grain, source their inputs, and produce new revenue streams from carbon markets. We help farmers get comfortable with making changes to their operation and ensure they realize the upsides and operational savings of a regenerative rotation. I'll give an example. Luke is a 6th-generation farmer taking over for his dad on their farm in Indiana. He's ready to do things a little differently to improve the health of his soil so that it can be productive for his kids and their kids. We helped him model the benefits of adding rye to a no-till system and showed there was money to be made through generating carbon offsets. We also connected him to local farm experts to tailor his management system to conditions on the ground, and are even exploring marketing his grain, his rye, at a premium. Our model will earn Luke another $30 per acre in new revenue, which comes to more than $200,000 over 10 years, on top of significant operational savings. In order to scale up these services to meet the demand from our farm partners, we are building a digital portal where farmers share a bit about their farm. We provide tailored referrals, how-to assistance, and market access to support profitable land stewardship. Farmers typically have found us to help first get access to carbon markets, maximize their value from these programs, and we have over 15 years of experience in these markets, which has helped us efficiently register projects, sell credits at a significant market premium, emphasizing the unique climate benefits a regenerative farm creates. And our revenue model allows us to take a percentage of carbon sales and transactions brokered on our platform, and to integrate a freemium arrangement for farm subscribers and corporate partners. We've had early success partnering with growers across the country. We've secured over $270K in revenue partnering with farmers. Most of this work has focused, again, on integrating growers into carbon markets and registering premium offset credits. Our current pipeline includes over 125 farms.
1 minute warning, just FYI.
What's that?
1 minute warning. Just what?
We've also developed relationships with food and ag companies that are representing about $12K in monthly recurring revenue. And there's a ton of tailwinds from the buyer sides of the market. Most prominent food and apparel brands have science-based targets. They're struggling to meet them, and we're helping them get the right accounting, the technical assistance to bring growers through the process of transition. We've already worked with Nestle, Starbucks, suppliers to Annie's to help with these transitions. We're raising about a $500,000 round to help us continue to build out our tech platform and give us some runway to get to market. And our team has significant experience. I've registered over 2 million tons of carbon offset credits and exited from a green startup. And we've consulted some of the top agricultural brands in the country, in the world. And we envision a farm economy where farmers succeed precisely because of how well they sustain our working lands. excited to build that transition with all of you guys.
Great job on the timing. You even beat the shot clock. Phenomenal. I'm going to bring the other investors back in, and then I will hand things over first to Orelle for questions for Sam.
Great, thanks. So several questions. First of all, can you expand on the monitoring and verification aspect of it? Like, who are you working with? And what does that look like in terms of voluntary market, non-voluntary market? And yeah.
We're mostly in voluntary markets right now. We work primarily with NORI, which is a carbon removal registry, as well as the ESMC, which is a sort of a corporate scope 3 reporting system. But really, we believe that some of the value in these credits is in the monitoring. And so while we may be required just to provide management data and run a climate model, we also voluntarily do a lot of soil sampling. We're working with a group called the Soil Inventory Project that is kind of a lean sampling approach that makes sampling cheaper for growers, but still really accurate in capturing some of the extra benefits that you get from a truly regenerative rotation that might be missed by a practice-based model. So we do a combination of collecting management data, running it through climate models, using these soil sampling tools. And we're also exploring some remote sensing partnerships that would allow us to verify with satellite imagery and other kind of signatures to be able to monitor those changes on the landscape. So we think this is a huge part of what makes it valuable to buyers of credits that really care about the permanence of these changes, the actual emissions reductions. So we do a good job of packaging that up within our platform, not putting the burden on the growers, but to really leverage the kind of full tech stack that we can bring to monitor these changes. And all projects are third-party verified. So we work with a verifier here in the United States to monitor those projects.
Okay, and one more question. Let's take Luke. What does the onboarding process look like for him? How long would it take? What does it require on his end? And
yeah, our goal is really to get that as short as possible. We sort of think of the platform right now as like a TurboTax of these markets, getting the few pieces of input that you need to be able to understand, is someone eligible for a program? Basically what their operation is, and using some of the tools that we have at our disposal to be able to fill in some of the gaps. We usually start in general with a 30-minute kind of intake with growers. We haven't been able to get that out of the process yet because there's a lot of explanation that needs to happen to figure out that these markets are a fit, understand the kind of value proposition of these markets. So we still have some face-to-face time with growers, but are trying to use technology to ease that kind of path in to collect management data. We usually take one or two representative fields as opposed to modeling an entire farm just to get information in a grower's hands quickly. So we think that the time from when a grower reaches out to us and gets into the top of our funnel to when they get information about their value capture, we have to get information to them, within 4 weeks, 6 weeks, hopefully quicker than that, to be able to continue to grease the wheels towards market participation. We anticipate in the future that being fully automated, but at this stage, that's what our onboarding looks like.
Great, thanks.
And Ryan, did you have any questions for Sam?
Yeah. First of all, thanks, Sam. This was great. And in full transparency, we're big believers in what Carbon Yield and Sam and Claire and the team are doing there. We're investors in their company, and so this is great to see the evolution of this overall. Sam, I think an important question for other investors, and I'm sure others on the call as well, is how you think about the nuances around regenerative farming. Obviously, it's not as black and white as organic farming. So how are you, as you scale and offer this to more farmers, and obviously there's this regenerative movement that's happening across the country and really the world, how are you thinking about adding in some of those layers of the sort of regenerative landscape overall?
Yeah, well, I think one of the advantages of collecting all of this management data from our growers is we have a really great data set to use to start benchmarking. We've also gotten some data from USDA and other sources to be able to see like what is kind of the state of the art now and how are growers comparing to that. We don't want to set up high barriers so that no one can participate in the regenerative movement, but we also don't want to set the level too low and actually just greenwash and sort of exclude some of the, allow for activities that are not creating actual benefit. So my definition of regenerative agriculture is really to incorporate multiple practices. These are not marginal, like, you just do no-till, you just do cover crop. There's synergy from adding more and more of these practices together. And so we want to help growers integrate that next practice. And there really is a glide path as you start on that journey to regenerative agriculture. But I think in the future, when we start communicating to corporates on the other side of our market, we see incorporating a grading system, so that you can see that there really is a gradient, and helping to show, this is an A+ farmer, this is a B farmer that's making improvement. Sort of leaning into that gradient aspect instead of having a certification approach, because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. And there are really great farms that have to use a little bit of herbicide or have to use a little bit of fertilizer still while incorporating these other practices. And so we don't want to exclude them just because they're using some synthetics, but it's a directional change, and it's really a combination effort of these various practices to get towards regenerative. That's what we believe will resonate.
Great. One more question, if we have time, is just thinking about the scalability of this. How much of this, as you grow, do you think there will still be touch points with the farmers versus sort of onboarding technology that allows farmers to come on and sort of do this in their own manual way? Or how are you thinking about that evolution over time?
Yeah, I think that there's a huge tech race right now in both direct measurement and in remote sensing. Billions of dollars are flowing into these kinds of companies, and I think that we are in a position to really leverage those technologies. A lot of those firms, have really great products, but have not figured out how they plug into carbon markets, how they communicate across these other value streams. So we want to be the kind of value creating hub that unlocks some of those technologies. But I really do think that it's going to become a fully automated process. We just don't want to wait for that to happen. I think there's a lot that needs to happen in the next couple of years here to make sure that these markets have credibility, that they have some throughput. And we're here to sort of work with what's available, but to be prepared for when everything is fully automated, and we can do this in 5 minutes, a couple clicks. That's the vision, is to become that kind of hub, that automated, frictionless hub for the regenerative economy.
Great, thanks.
And what entirely is your business model? How much money are you making per farm that you're onboarding? That's something that I didn't really see in the presentation.
Yeah, I mean, part of it depends. And frankly, in the past, we've had more of a consultative model where we've worked with asset owners that say, hey, we'll do a feasibility study, we'll pay you as consultants, we'll give you $5,000-$10,000 to look across our portfolio and figure out where there's value and sort of set up our reporting systems. We're moving away from that model to taking a percentage of transactions that are brokered. So we take 15 to 30% of our carbon transactions, with an incentive to get the price up. And we have some nice relationships there where we've secured like $100 per ton offtake agreements for some of our pilot farmers. So we take a percentage of those sales, of grain sales, input sales, and then we also eventually see ourselves having a kind of subscription model where we charge per acre for folks enrolling in our system. So that'd be something like $2 per acre to enroll. So we want to delay that because we want to make sure that we're providing services to our growers. We're not taxing the very growers that are experimenting with our platform. But the value capture for us per acre is somewhere around $10-15 an acre as we continue to onboard.
One potential challenge I see is, how do you keep people engaged in using the system? Once you've taught someone how to exercise, how to eat healthy, they don't need you to keep teaching them. And once you've taught them how to do carbon market and carbon offsets, they don't need you. So the two big value adds seem like one-time things.
Well, so these carbon projects are 10-year projects, and there is a record-keeping requirement and monitoring requirement, and we are providing that kind of accounting backbone for those projects, and that gives us one pretty important tether between us and the growers. But we want to have a community platform as well as part of this. We talked a little bit about sort of providing community and confidence to our growers. But a lot of growers, as they're implementing these practices, they have questions, or they have a pest problem and they need someone that's gone through that same experience to help them find a solution. And so we want that conversation to be happening on our platform in that kind of everyday kind of way. And there are a lot of great podcasts out there. We've heard sort of an informal exchange of these ideas, but the idea of kind of organizing that conversation, making it location connected, so if there's someone in Missouri and you're a Missouri farmer that's experienced this, or someone that has a similar rotation, kind of organizing that set of information and allowing that conversation to happen on our platform. So we think that will create benefits for our subscribers. And every year you got to grow and sell crops, and we think that we can, with more diversity, it becomes more complex to find a market for alfalfa, find a market for rye. And we think that every year as that complexity takes place on the farms, we're going to be there to help find markets, find value for those important regenerative crops.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. Thanks for doing, it was a great presentation. I'm super excited.
Quickly before we move on.
Yeah, of course. Orelle, go for it.
I just wanted to say that I think it's like very amazing that you're making farming more relatable to our generation in a way. I mean, there's like this huge trend that, farmers are, there's clearly a lack of farmers and our generation is turning away from that. So I think it's, there's a huge need to make this profession more relatable to our generation. And it looks like you guys are doing that. So good job.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it.